Hi, my name is Fernandine Kim. Yeah, I'm returning to the subject of cultural appropriation. Sorry, but I'm not sorry. There are many things about this whole thing that I find annoying, and I'm going to talk about them. Yeah, although I understand that there are situations where the whole concept of cultural appropriation is a valid criticism, like when there are mocking, stereotyping, disrespectful, rude portrayals of other cultures. Like when people benefit financially from things, or something is considered a white thing when it comes from another culture, and basically the culture it comes from gets exploited and fucked over in the process. Um, there are valid criticisms with regards to cultural appropriation, but the way it often gets talked about these days, particularly since it's become the trendy new social justice topic, is really kind of annoying. And I have had some new thoughts about the issue that I've not really talked about yet, so I'd like to share them. So these are my 7 flaws with cultural appropriation. They're not in an order like a usual top 10 or whatever, but they're not in an order where like the one that I talk about last is the most problematic one or whatever. They're just in an order that makes it. They're just in an order that is useful for discussing it in a way that's coherent and makes sense. Firstly, and I don't think I've heard anyone mention this before, black culture is actually the dominant culture when it comes to popular music, for example. And popular music, let's not forget, has a massive influence on fashion. Yeah, whenever someone objects to the whole notion of cultural appropriation with regards to white people wearing dreads or twerking or whatever it might be, and then they say, what, so all these people of colour who use computers or whatever should stop using them because they were invented by a white guy. The counter criticism is always, well, white culture is the dominant culture and people of colour need to like fit in with it in order to get ahead, sort of thing. It's funny though, it's funny when people criticise white people for adopting elements of black culture that they are exposed to because of reggae music or hip hop music. Because the funny thing is, in popular music, black culture is the dominant culture. People look up to and idolise these very successful music stars and they want to be like them. How is that different to... Well, obviously it is different because fitting into white culture and can affect your ability to find work and stuff like that. I admit that's more serious than emulating popular music stars. But it's funny that nobody seems to mention that actually when it comes to popular music, black culture is the dominant culture. The majority of the tracks on the charts are hip-hop or R&B tracks. And in a way this has been a success story for people of colour. That back in the old days of rock and roll, white artists would basically cover and rip off black artists' R&B songs and repackage them for a white audience, and the original artist wouldn't get to see any money from it, whilst the white artist became massively successful. And this was, I suppose, reflective of the racist culture of the times, that white and blacks were very segregated from one another back then, and that there was definitely massive inequality. And what's happened over time, and partly because black music has influenced white music stars, the black artists started to make a success for themselves in their own right, starting with soul in the 60s and 70s, through the whole reggae thing to the hip-hop and R&B of today. And now that is the dominant landscape when it comes to popular music. Rap and R&B are the most successful styles of music on the planet at the moment, and I don't think it's surprising when kids always want to emulate the music stars that they idolise. They always want to adopt the fashions of the style of music they listen to. That's why, you know, Rob Halford took, I'll come to this in a minute, but Rob Halford took the whole leather and studs thing out of the gay S&M scene, and then it took off, it became like the heavy metal uniform, in a similar way, you know. you get fashions that come from black culture because the black stars are the ones making the music. Kids look up to their stars and they want to emulate them. Kids admire a style of music and they want to adopt the clothing that goes along with it. I thought it's not cultural appropriation if the culture that's being adopted is the dominant one. And this leads me a little bit to another point. Black performers are some of the richest people on the planet. I mean, Jay-Z and Beyonce. I mean, you can't claim these people are oppressed. They're very rich and very influential. The third thing I would say is 99% of white people take inspiration from other cultures for positive reasons. Yes, I know about the stereotype portrayals. Disrespectful use of Native American headdresses for fancy dress. Horribly stereotyped and insulting portrayals of Chinese culture or whatever. There are all these examples where it's rude and disrespectful. There are many shallow borrowings of things, you know, like people who want to put Ganesha on their altar just because he looks cool rather than because it actually means anything spiritual to them. And these are valid criticisms, but you know what, 99% of the time when white people, or people of any culture for that matter, take on aspects of other cultures, it's because they see something in that culture that they admire and respect, and they want to enrich their lives by including it in their own lives. You shouldn't have to immerse yourself fully in another culture if that's not comfortable for you or not the way you want to be. It doesn't stop you from taking aspects of other cultures that you appreciate, admire and respect and integrating them into your own life. There seems to be a lot of assumptions that when white people borrow from other cultures they're only doing it for the meanest, most disrespectful reasons, and this actually is quite an intolerant and prejudiced way of looking at it, because it just isn't the case. The fact of the matter is that a lot of white people think it's the right thing to do to look at other cultures and take inspiration from them, so that they're not a racist bigot, so that they're not you know, ignorant of other cultures. They want to partake in other cultures and explore and experience as a way of, I mean, admittedly it's a little bit of patting yourself on the back, self-congratulatory thing, but white people have been told for so long that we are racist that actually this situation where white people look to other cultures and want to engage in it and absorb aspects of other cultures and enrich themselves, it's because white people want to be multicultural. We don't want to be racist bigots. We want to be multicultural. We want to not be ignorant. We want to learn from other cultures. We want to... This feels like a respectful thing for white people, and that's why a lot of white people get upset when they're being criticised for what they thought was the opposite of racist, and now told that it's cultural appropriation and it's wrong. And I'm not sure it is, because if it is out of respect and admiration for other cultures, then it is actually coming from a good place. And don't tell me that you're making a distinction between cultural appreciation and cultural appropriation. That's just something you say to deflect the criticism that people make about the arguments you're making, because you're still picking on white people for wearing dreads. You're still picking on white people for adopting aspects of hip-hop culture or whatever. When 9 times out of 10, the people who adopt aspects of hip-hop culture do so because they admire that culture, because they want to be part of that musical scene, that fashion and that subculture. I mean, when you get white stars, white pop stars or whatever, doing aspects of these, you know, aspects of dance moves and things that come from hip-hop culture or whatever, let's face it, like I said, it's the dominant force in popular music these days. Aren't they just trying to involve themselves in what is the current dominant force in popular music anyway? Artists are always looking to explore and have elements of other music in their music, you know, to expand their sound, to be more interesting and more relevant to a broader range of people. And it's something music artists do. They explore and expand their musical repertoire into other areas. When George Harrison wanted to learn the sitar, because he genuinely liked and admired Indian music, so he brought a bit of that into the Beatles music. I see nothing wrong with that. When you get some kind of dubstep artist, I don't think he's white though, involving, I forget the name of the artist in question, but including aspects of Chinese music in his music. It's again trying to explore other musical avenues to enrich your sound. It's something music artists do, and again, it's not for any means, it's not for any stealing reason. It's for genuine appreciation and admiration of that culture. And yet people still pick on them. Katy Perry dresses up, I don't know, as Egyptian or whatever, or Chinese or Japanese or whatever in her videos. Pop videos are often make-believe, where stars will dress up as things. It's part of the whole thing with pop music. You know, Iron Maiden had elements of Egyptian things in their Power Slave album. It's that sort of thing has been going on for a long time. It's not cultural appropriation. It's part of a widening of the mind to other cultures. It is cultural appreciation, yet people still criticise it. You know, white guys wearing dreads because basically maybe they like Bob Marley's music. Maybe they only associate Bob Marley with smoking weed and not with Rastafarianism, and I understand how that could be annoying. But at the end of the day, a lot of the white people who wear dreads, they're kind of hippie-ish. They're trying to get back to nature, so letting their hair be natural and you know, so it locks like that. It is in a way a spiritual endeavour for them, just as much as it is for a Rastafarian. And so this is the problem I have with it. 99% of the time, white people are not adopting from other cultures to be disrespectful or mocking or to steal it. It's through genuine appreciation and genuine admiration and genuine respect for other cultures and genuine desire to open your mind and not be ignorant. You know, it's genuinely coming from a multicultural place, and yet, and you can say all you want that there's a difference between appreciation and appropriation, but you're still criticising people for things like appreciation, saying it's appropriation when it's not. Number 4 is that white people are not a homogenous group, and we are not responsible for the decisions of employers. Because with dreads, I think specifically, this is often said that, you know, black people lose jobs and that, and for having dreads and so on. It's as if somehow white people with dreads are getting lots of jobs. I think usually they suffer from the same problem. I mean, employers can be pretty judgmental on looks sometimes. I mean, they'll judge me for having long hair. It's not the responsibility of all white people for what people in positions of power are doing. Not all of us are in positions of power. Most of us face many of the same problems and obstacles when it comes to getting jobs, because we might have tattoos or we might have long hair or whatever it might be that they'll view in a bad way and not want to employ us for that reason. I don't see how the kid down the street being a bit hip-hop and street, or the hippie having dreads is really anything to do with that. It's not like they're the ones in the positions of power. It's not like they're the employers. Stop viewing white people as a homogenous group of people who are somehow in conspiracy with each other to oppress black people. Number 5, cultural appropriation has been going on for ages. The Greeks and Romans stole many things from the Egyptians that have now become part of our common culture. Rock music is based on the blues. Do you not realise that whenever you say something's cool or something's hot, that terminology comes from jazz culture? Is that cultural appropriation? We all use that language. You know what? Cultures have been mixing and merging for a long, long time. And yes, because of the colonial, imperialistic things in the past, sometimes it wasn't always done in the right way. But you know what? Generally speaking, it has enriched our culture and made our culture a lot more better. And to stop this happening, you're stopping progress itself. And you're building walls instead of bridges. Number 6, minorities have benefited from past appropriations. I've already talked about rock and roll, taking rhythm and blues and repackaging it for white audiences, and yes, that was pretty shitty and bad. I mean, I'm not in approval of that at all. I'd much rather go to the source material of the black artists than the Elvis covers of them. A lot of the time they're better, to be honest. I'm not really an Elvis fan, I'm afraid. But you know what? As a result of that, black music came to white audiences, and that led to the situation where black artists could hold their own and become successful in their own right, as happened in the 60s and 70s with the various soul and reggae artists that were successful then, right through to the 80s and beyond, when rap music became so successful. And maybe in part Beastie Boys had something to do with that, though I think Run DMC were just as successful at the time, but maybe that's because they did a song with Aerosmith. But you know what, sometimes the dominant culture takes a thing from another culture and make it massively successful. Sometimes it's bad because white people get the credit for it rather than the original culture, but sometimes, you know, it allows people from the dominant culture to have their eyes open to the other culture that's out there, and then thanks to that other culture actually ends up having success in their own right. It happened with reggae, with Eric Clapton covering a Bob Marley song. It goes on and on, you know. The cultural appropriation leads to actually the original culture becoming successful in our culture. So the positive results can result from it. And once again, I want to mention the Rob Halford thing. Rob Halford took gay S&M uniform of leather and studs and made it become basically the universal kind of uniform of heavy metal music, and with many heavy metal fans adopting this. Yeah, and most of them were not aware that it came from gay subculture. But you know what? Rob Halford was very successful in that, very successful band Judas Priest, and what he managed to do was take something from his own sexuality and make it the uniform for heavy metal. Do you think he really feels upset about that cultural appropriation of all those metal kids wearing those leather studs? No, I bet he's secretly laughing about it, how he took something from gay subculture and made it acceptable in a very masculinized, very heterosexual subculture such as heavy metal. And you know what, that's the thing about it as well, it's also really funny, because any homophobia you encounter in the metal community, you can always counter with the fact that you're wearing a style of dress that basically originated from gay S&M. It makes that bigotry laughable, a joke. So it's not always true that cultural appropriation has bad effects. It can have very positive effects. Minorities can benefit from the process of cultural appropriation. It's a very simplistic argument to make that it's always a bad thing. And I know you're going to make that distinction again between appreciation and appropriation, but some of the things clearly are appropriation, and yet positive things result from it. And finally, my final big flaw that I've noticed in the whole cultural appropriation argument, sharing, which is basically a pretty obvious conclusion to make, sharing culture builds bridges. You know, the more we mix and mingle with each other, the more we tear down those walls and build bridges. The more that we influence each other, our cultures influence each other, the better it gets, you know. Stop viewing white people as these racist overlords. Most of us don't have that much power. Most of us genuinely are interested, fascinated with other cultures. I mean, partly I suppose because we find something lacking in our own. There's nothing wrong with looking for inspiration and wisdom or just really cool things from other cultures. White people will look at other cultures, they'll find something that resonates with them, that inspires them, or just that they think is really cool, and they want to adopt it into their own lives. But they don't necessarily want to immerse themselves fully in the other culture. And yet, even then, even when they've just taken one aspect or a few aspects from a culture, the fact that they benefit so much from those things they've taken from will make them look at the people of that culture and have respect for that culture and for those people. It builds a bridge, and that's a good thing. Multiculturalism is a good thing. I've always argued against racists by saying all these people who come to our country, who come to the UK, from Asia, from Africa, they've enriched our culture. They've given us so many things that we appreciate. Black music styles have created all the popular music we enjoy. Rock and metal are based on the blues. Dance music is based on rap and reggae and soul. We've all benefited from that. We all benefit from the cuisines of other cultures. We all benefit spiritually from other cultures. So many people are turning away from the Christian church because they see aspects of it that really, to be honest, don't make a lot of sense, or just seem plain mean-spirited and unhealthy. And some go atheist and some go pagan, but many, and this has been going on for a long time, since the 60s, many have turned to Eastern religions, to Buddhism, etc. And sometimes people take some aspects of Buddhism but not all of it, and it still enriches their lives and makes it better, because Buddhism is a very wise philosophy. So even if just some of it rubs off on you, it will improve your life. And I don't see any Buddhists complaining about this. Usually they're very glad when aspects of Buddhism infect other aspects of culture, like with the New Age movement. I've never heard a Buddhist be negative about those sorts of things. It's great. Even if only some aspects of the Buddhist message get out there and affect people's lives, it's still positive for everybody. Obviously it's best from a Buddhist perspective if you adopt the whole thing, but you know what? Every little helps. Some is better than nothing. And yeah, our lives have been enriched by the way cultures have mingled with one another. New hybrids come forth because of the way cultures mingle with each other. Heavy metal is a good example of that, based on the blues, but also partly on classical music. This is a good thing. Multiculturalism is a good thing. Stop agreeing with like the white nationalists that it's a bad thing. It's a good thing. As cultures mix, bridges are built. Even if you just take on a few aspects of another culture and use it to enrich your own culture, still a bridge has been made. You will then forevermore look on the people of that culture with respect, you know? Adopt aspects of their spirituality, you say they're wise. You adopt aspects of their music, you think they're cool. You know what? This builds bridges. This is the opposite of racist. It's a good thing. So those are the problems I have with the cultural appropriation argument. If you liked it, press like. If you like my content, subscribe. If you want to argue with me, or make constructive criticism, or just comment in agreement or whatever, then say in the comments below. Thanks for watching.